Hi everyone, welcome to SriSai online training. So today in advanced Python programming, we are going to discuss the following topics: types of variables in Python class. So under types of variables, we are going to discuss static variables in Python class and local variables in Python class. Right, so before starting with the session, let us have a small revision what we discussed in the last session. So in the last session we have seen constructor execution in Python class. So basically constructors are executed when object is created automatically. Okay, and what is the use of constructor? So constructor declares instance variables, okay, and gives initial values to them. Okay, and this is done with the help of self variable. So self indicates current object which is used in the program. So constructor is a special method of a class which is executed automatically whenever the object of a class is created, and constructor declares and initializes instance variables for a particular object using self variable. And basically we write constructor using double underscore init double underscore with self variable as the first parameter. Next, we have also seen how to work with self variable in instance methods. Okay, so self variables. So self is a variable, so which represents current object under execution. So current object under execution in Python class. So whichever object is currently getting executed in a Python class, it is represented by self variable. So when you say obj1.display, self means obj1. When we say obj2.display, then self means obj2. So whatever is the current object, self will be pointing to that object in the memory for that particular class. Okay, and self variable is separate for every class. So for every class, self variable is separate. So for student class, we'll have a self variable. For employee class, we'll have a separate self variable. And we have also discussed types of variables in Python class. Under that, we have seen instance variables, working with instance variables. So instance variables are separate for every object of a class, and instance variable, okay, so instance variables are separate for every object of a class. So every object, they will have separate memory location, like roll number, name, age, height. Roll number, name, height. Okay, right? And instance variable are accessible inside the class using self variable, and outside the class using object reference variable name s1, s2, s3. So example goes like this: self dot roll number, name, height inside the class, or outside the class it is something like s1 dot roll number. Okay, so s1 dot roll number, s1 dot name, s1 dot height. Then how to delete a instance variable? So instance variables are again deleted in two ways: using self variable or using object reference variable name. Example: delete self dot roll number. So this is inside the class, or we can also use something like delete s1 dot roll number. Right, so this is how we are supposed to work with instance variables inside a class and outside a class, which represents separate memory allocation for every object of a class. So self and object name are used within the class and outside the class to work with instance variables. So instance means object. For every object, they are separate memory allocation. So now coming to the today's topic, static variables or class level variables in a Python class. Right. So before starting with this session, okay. So types of variables. So under types of variables, we have first one, instance variables. They are also called as object level variables. Next, second one, static variables. They are also called as class level variables. And third one, we have local variables. Okay, so local variables are also called as method variables. Okay, so we have already discussed about object level variables. So let us start with static variables or class level variables. So now coming to the static variables. So these variables are common for all the objects of a class. Okay, so common for all the objects of a class. Now for example, if we take something like S1, S2 and S3, S4, student 1, student 2, student 3, student 4 objects. Now for this, roll number, name and height is separate. Okay, so for every student we'll have a separate roll number, separate name, separate height. So these comes under instance variables or object level variables because they are separate for every object of a class. But coming to the static variables, these are common for all the objects of a class. For example, for student 1, student 2, student 3, student 4, what are the common variables? So the common variables are something like course. So course is common for all the students. College name, college address, college phone number. So these are common for all the students of a class. So these comes under static variables. Okay, right? So here course, college, etc. are static variables of a class. So roll number, name, height. Okay, so roll number, name, height are instance variables of a class or object level variables because they are separate for every object of a class. Static variables are common for all the objects of a class. Now how to declare them? So static variables are declared directly inside a class without any constructor or without any method. So we can also declare them inside the constructor and method also, but for that we have to use the class name. We'll see that. Okay, so generally static variables are declared directly inside a class. Okay, so basically without constructor or method. Okay, now for all the objects only one copy of memory is allocated and shared with all the objects of this class. So here course and college name, only one memory allocation is done and this will be shared with all the students of that student class. And we can access static variables with class name or object name. Preferable is class name. Okay, so preferable is class name. So let us try to demonstrate this with a small program. Static variables.py. Okay, right. So get back to the program. So program to demo static variables in a class. So I'm taking a class static variables, description of the class, static variables in a class, triple single quotes. Okay, next. So this is a static variable C. So this is defined outside the method or constructor, but not inside the method or constructor. We can also define inside the method and constructor, but that is a special case. So C. So C is a static variable. So it is common variable for all objects. Right. So C initial value is 11. Okay. Next we are taking the constructor. So in the constructor using self variable, we are taking instance variable x, y. Initial values are 10, 20. So self means it will become instance variable. Next, we are taking instance method or a regular method, display method with self variable. Now in this method, we are displaying x value, y value, and c value. So we can access static variable with class name or object name. So preferable is class name. But since we are using it inside display method, I'm using self.c. Okay, so self.c, or we can also say class name here. So the class name is static vars.c, or we can also use self.c, but preferable is class name. Right, so save this program. So first we'll do two cases here. Right, so we'll see all the cases one by one. Right, so that we'll get a clear understanding. So first we'll create an object of a class obj1. Okay, obj1, so it will go to the constructor xy 10, 20. So in memory, obj1 will be pointing to x is equals to 10, comma, y is equals to 20. Okay, right, so I'll put a comment for this, and for this the common shareable variable is c, so c is equals to 11. Okay, so c is accessible to obj1. Okay, so when you say obj1 dot display, it will print x value 10, y value 20, and static variables dot c or self dot c. So the c value is 11. Okay, so save this, come to the command prompt, go to your working directory and run this. So py static variables dot py. So 10, 20, and 11. Okay, right guys. So now let us take another object. So second object, obj2 constructor static variables. So for obj2 also x, y, 10, 20, and c value is common, which is 11. Okay, so when you say obj2 dot display, we'll get 10, 20, and c value is 11. 10, 20, c value is 11. Right, so now let us create a copy of this. So obj2, so obj2 x, y, 10, 20, and c value for obj2 is also 11. So save this and run. So college name, course name will be common for all the objects. So 11 is common for obj1, obj2. Right, so now let us try to change c value. So I'm accessing c value outside the class. Okay, so outside the class access. So static variables dot c is equals to 111. Okay, and then I'm changing obj1 values. obj1 dot x 100, 200. Okay, so what happens in the memory? Okay, it goes like this. So now in the memory, obj1 will become x 100, y 200, and c value is changed to 111. Okay, now c value is changed to 111. For object 2 also it will become 111. Okay, because it is common value. See, for example, if college name or college phone number is modified by the college management, then it will be updated or modified to all the students of the college. Right, so after that we'll see obj1 dot display, obj2 dot display. Okay, right, so when you say obj1 dot display, you will get 100, 200, 11. When you say obj2 dot display, you will get 10, 20, 111. So save this and run. So 100, 200, 111 for obj1, 10, 20, 111 for obj2. So this is how we are supposed to work with, okay, static variables inside a class and static variables outside a class. Okay. Now, since static variables are common for all the objects, if static variable value is modified, it will be reflected to obj1 as well as obj2. But when instance variables are changed or modified, it will be reflected only to that particular object. Okay. Right. Now we can also print particular object instance variables using dictionary variables. So obj1.dict, obj2.dict. So save this, come to the command prompt and run. So for obj1 xy 100 200, for obj2 xy 10 20. Right. So similarly for class also, static variables dot double underscore dict. So it will give both instance variables as well as static variables. Okay. So it will give complete description. So first of all, it is a module. It is a main program. Doc, description of the class, static variables in a class. So C value is 111. And then we have display method. Okay. Next we also have init method. And then apart from that, we should also have the right. So this is what is description of a class. And if we use double underscore dict, we'll get data properties for that particular object. Okay. So anyhow, this is not required. But so this is how we are supposed to work with static variables inside a class and outside a class with objects. So instance variables are separate for every object of a class. Static variables are common copy, shareable copy for all the objects of a class. So changes done to instance variables are updated to that particular object only, and changes done to static variables are updated to every object. And then underscore underscore dict variable, it will give you the details of static variables in a class, and it should be used with class name. So now we will see where we can declare static variables in a class. So we have 6 cases. First one, inside a class directly without constructor or method. Like in the previous program, we have seen this. Inside a class, C is equals to 11 without constructor and without any method. Next, second class, inside the constructor using class name. We will see now inside the instance method using class name. Right. We also have some special cases inside class methods. So till now we did not see class methods, but we'll see a small program. So inside class methods with class name or class variable name. So inside a class, if you declare any variable, it will become class variable. Okay. Next, inside static methods with class name. So till now we did not see the static methods, so we'll see this one also. And finally, outside the class using class name. We have already seen this in the previous program. Outside the class using class name, we have used the, or we have accessed the static variable C. Right, so these two are special cases, fourth one and fifth one. So these topic anyhow we are going to discuss in the coming sessions, but as of now we'll see a small program on this class methods and static methods. Okay. Right, so let us try to demonstrate this with a small program, static variables 1. So take a new page, first write the comments. So program to declare and use static variables in different places of a Python program. So take a class static variables 1. Right, so static variable declaration, comment or description of a class. Right, so first case, I'm declaring a static variable inside a class directly without any constructor, without any method. So without constructor or method. So C1 value is 11. Next, this is a constructor. So constructor is used to initialize and declare instance variable, but here I'm declaring static variable. How? Class name static variable 1 dot c2 is equals to 22. So this is another static variable c2. Okay, so this is inside constructor using class name. Next, third one, inside m1 method, which is an instance method or regular method, using class name static variables 1 dot c3 33. Right, so save this. Inside instance method using class name. So these are three cases. Now coming to the fourth and fifth case, special cases, class methods. So class methods are given with @ class method notation. So our class method is m2 method and class method variable is x. So variables which are defined inside a class method are called as class method variables. Now inside a class method I can declare a static variable using class name. So static variables 1 dot c4 is equals to 41 using class name. Okay, so this is inside class method using class name, and inside the class method using class variable name, which is x. So x is a class variable which is a parameter to the m2 method. So using that also I'm taking one more class variable c5 is equals to 55. So this is class method. So inside class method using class variable name. Okay, next we also have static methods. So class methods and static methods, we have a separate chapter. There we'll discuss in depth. So define m3 method. It is a @ static method. It is a notation to declare or define a static method. So under this I'm using class name static variables 1 dot c6 66. So inside static method using class name. So total 6 variables. So directly inside a class c111, inside the constructor c222, inside the instance method c333. So inside the class method c4 44 and c5 55, and inside the static method c6 66. And we are going to display all these things inside the display method. How? So inside the display method, so display method is an instance method. So inside the instance method we have to use the class name. So static variables dot c1, c2, c3, c4, c5, c6, and outside the class also I'm declaring static variables 1 dot c7. Okay, right. So now let us do all the cases one by one so that we'll get a clear understanding. So first we will print class name dot dictionary variable. Okay, so let us check what are the initial static variables. So save this, come to the command prompt and run static variables 1.py. So inside the class, if you see here, what are the static variables? So initially we have only one static variables, which is c111. Okay, right. Now let us create an object of the class obj1 static variables 1 constructor. So it will go to the constructor and it will take second static variable c2 22. So after that we will print obj1.display. So when you say obj1.display, we will get c1 c2, so c3 c4 c5 c6 c7 not defined. We'll get an error, name error. So because till now we are using only obj1 with constructor, right? So save this, come to the command prompt and run. So 11 22, so c3 error in display method, right? So let us put a comment for this. Now let us call m1 method, obj1.m1 display method. Okay, so when you call m1 method, right, so c3 is also defined, 33. So total we have c1, c2, c3. So save this. When we call display method, it will display c1, c2, c3 and error for c4. So save this and run. Okay, right, so put proper comments here. Right, so c1, c2, c3. For c4 we are getting the error because till now it is not defined in the class. Right, so now let us go for c4 and c5. How? So call the class method. So class method is called directly with class name. Okay, so call class method using class name. So static variables 1.m2. After that call the display method. So m2 is a class method. So under m2 method we are declaring c4, c5 static variables. So when we call display method, it will display c1, c2, c3, c4, c5. c6 will get the error. So save this and run. Okay, put the proper comments for the remaining cases and run. Okay, acha. Put the comments at the down. Save, run. Right, so c4. Okay, we are supposed to, okay, call, okay, save this, run. Okay, we are getting error for c4. So let's check it out. So here we have called the m2 method. Okay, so let's go to m2 method. Okay, so m2 method x. Okay, we should not pass any parameter here. So c4 and c5 is defined here, right, but still we are getting an error here. So let's check it out. c4. Okay, right, so we should put a comment for this one, previous display method, otherwise we'll get the error. So run now. So c1, c2, c3, c4, c5 and error for c6. Now we'll call the static method using class name and call the display method. Okay, right, so this is the static variables 1.m3. So static method is also called with class name. So inside the static method we are declaring c6, 66. And when you call display one, c1, c2, c3, c4, c5, c6, error for c7. Okay, right, so call the display method, save this, recompile. Okay, so 11, 22, 33, 44, 55, 66. So c7 error, till now it is not declared in the program. Now let us declare c7 also. Okay, so static variables dot c7 77. Now call the display method. You will not get any error. All are executed properly. Okay, so save this and run. So no error. So c1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So outside the class we are using class name. So class methods are called with class name. Similarly, static method is also called with class name. Okay, and then static variables are accessed outside the class using class name. Right, so this is how we are supposed to work with. Okay, different places to declare static variable: inside the class directly without any constructor or method. So inside the constructor using class name, inside the instance method using class name. So inside the class method using class name or class variable name. Okay, And then inside the static method using class name, and outside the class using class name. So if you see the program, we have done all these cases here. So inside the class directly without any constructor or method, directly with variable name. So inside the constructor using class name, inside the instance method using class name, inside the class method using class name and class variable name x, and inside the static method using class name. Okay, and outside the class using class name, which is static variable 1.c7. C7. How to access static variables in Python program? We have already seen this in the previous program only, just for your confirmation. So first, inside the constructor using self or class name, inside the instance method using self or class name, inside the class method using class variable name or class name, and then inside the static method using class name, and outside the class using class name or object name. So let us try to demonstrate this with static variables 2.py. So take a new page. First we'll write the comments. So program to access, okay, static variables in different places. So take the main class, class static variables to comment or description static variable to accessing, not declaration, this is accessing in different places. So first I'm declaring only one static variable ma, c is equals to 11 directly without any constructor or method. Now inside the constructor I can access the static variable using self using class name. So self.c static variable dot c. Okay, right, now let us execute all these things one by one. You will get the clarity. So put comment for remaining cases. So just create an object of the class ma. Okay, so when we create the object of a class, okay, so here we are printing self.c 11 static variable 2.c class name 11 is the answer. So save this, come to the command prompt and run the program static vars 2.py 11. So self.c static vars 2.c 11. Next, second case, inside the instance method m1 using self variable self.c using class name static vars 2.c. So save this, so call m1 method, okay, and run. So inside the instance method m1 self.c static vars 2.c, so self variable using class name. Next, third one, inside the class method m2 method with class variable x, we can access that with class variable x.c and using class name static vars 2.c. So save this and call the class method. So basically we can call the class method using class name or object name. Okay, here we'll use the class name here, static vars 2.m2. okay, right, so save this and run. So inside the class method x.c class name.c 11. Similarly, inside the static method m3 we can access only with class name static vars 2.c. So here static method can be called with class name or object name, preferable is class name. So static vars 2.m3. Right, so save this, recompile and run. Answer is 11. Next, outside the class. So outside the class we can access with object name as well as with class name obj1.c and static vars 2.c. So save this and run. So 11. So these are the 5 ways where we can access static variables in Python program. Inside the constructor using self variable or class name, inside the instance method using self variable or class name, inside the class methods using class name or class variable name, inside the static methods using class name, and outside the class using class name or object name. Right. So now let us see where we can modify the static variables. So we can access and modify the static variables same as the previous 5 cases. Inside the constructor, inside the instance method, okay, inside class method, inside static method, and outside the class. Okay, so coming to anywhere inside or outside the class using class name, and then also using class variable name inside class method. So self should not be used here. So important point here, don't use self variable to modify, because it becomes instance variable. If we use self variable, it will become instance variable. Reason, self means current object. So for current object, it will become instance variable. Okay. So use the 5 cases to access the and modify the static variable inside the class using class name and outside the class using class name, or inside the class method using class variable name. So let us try to demonstrate this with static variables 3.py. Right. So program to access or modify static variables in different places. So class static vars3. So description. So static vars3 access or modify static variables. So I'm declaring only one static variable C11. So inside the constructor, I'm modifying the static variable C to 22. Inside the instance method, we are modifying it with C33. Inside the class method, we are modifying C44 using class variable name, and inside the static method, we are verifying C value to 55 using static vars3 class name. Right, so let us do all the cases one by one. First, let us print C value using class name outside the class, static vars3.c. Right, so C value initially when the program is loaded, C value is 11. So save this, come to the command prompt and run. So static vars3.py. So initially, okay, let us put comment for the remaining cases also. Remaining cases, and then execute the first one now. Okay, right. So now initially C value will be 11. Save and run. So 11 is the answer. Next, now let us call the constructor. Okay, so call the constructor by creating an object obj1, call the constructor, and again print C value outside the class using class name, static vars3.c. So save this. So in the constructor, it is modified to 22. Now C value should be 22. Run 22. Okay. Next, let us call M1 method and modify the C value to 33. Right. So now call M1 method and modify C value to 33 and print C value. Okay. So static vars3.c, now it should be 33. So any changes done to the static variables, they are reflected throughout the program for all the objects because they are common for all the objects of a class. Now call the M2 method, class method. So class method with class variable and modify C to 44 and print C value. So inside the class method, we are modifying it to 44. Save and run. Next, finally, inside the static method, call the static method and modify the C value to 55. Right. So if you see here, call the M3 method using class name and modify the C value and print C value, which should be 55. Right. So finally, outside the class. So outside the class, I'm modifying the C value to 66 using class name and print C value. Static vars 3.c. Now C value is 66. So this is how we are supposed to work with. Okay. Modification of static variable in 5 different places: constructor, instance method, class method, static method, outside the class. So inside or outside the class, we use class name, and outside the, inside the class method, we can also use class variable name. But don't use self variable, because self means current object, so it will become instance variable. Right, guys? So any doubts how to modify static variables in a Python program? So now coming to the special case related to static variables of a class. Okay, right. So this is a special case, important point. So if we modify the value of static variables using self or object reference variable name, okay, so it is not updated to static variable. However, it becomes a instance variable. Okay, so however, it becomes instance variable. That is, in a new instance variable with that name will be added to that particular object, because self or object means it becomes a object property but not a static property or class property. Okay, so let us try to do this in the same program here. Static variables 3.py. Right, so put comment for the previous case. Next, right, let us execute this case now. Okay, right. So if you see here, static modification variable with self variable. Okay, so self variable or object reference variable. Okay, so I'm taking a class static vars 4. So take the description of the class static vars 4 class definition. So initially I'm declaring a static variable without any constructor or methods. C value is 111. Now inside the method m1 or inside the constructor, I am changing the C value. Self.c is equals to 222. So this will become instance variable. Class variable will be like that only. So first create an object of a class static vars 4 and then call m1 method. So when you call m1 method, you will get an instance variable c for obj1 and then print static vars 4.c, it will be 111, and when you print obj1.c, we'll get it as 222. So this variable is separate, this variable is separate. So this will be class variable and this will be instance variable for obj1. So save this and run. So class variable is 111 only, but instance variable for obj1 will be 222. Now both are separate. Okay. Now for example, outside the class, I'll create another object, obj2. Okay. Now for obj2, I'll take obj2.c is equals to 333. So this is C variable, data property for obj3. So print, obj2 333, print obj2.c. So save this and run. This will be separate value again, 333. So C value static variable, C value obj1 data property, C value obj2 data property. So these two are separate instance. This is a common instance. That's why whenever we are making modification using self variable or object reference variable, it will become a instance variable. It is not a static variable. How to delete static variable of a class in Python program? Okay, right? So in Python program, so it is done inside or outside a class using delete statement. Okay, so delete statement is used here. So inside or outside a class, we have to use delete class name dot static variable name, and inside the class method we can also use class variable name, because class method is a special method. We'll discuss that in the coming session. So delete class variable name dot static variable name. Right, so let us get back to the same program, static vars 3.py. So here, deleting static variables from class methods. Okay, so from Python program. So from Python class, you can say. Okay, so I'm taking a class static vars delete. Okay, so take the description of the class, static vars class definition. So we are defining a class variable 11 directly inside a class without constructor or static method. Now, so inside a class we can delete with class name dot variable name, but inside the class method we can delete. So delete x dot c. So what is x here? It is a class variable name. Right, so first we will do it like this. We will print class name dot double underscore dictionary. So save this, and then okay, here I'll take one more variable d is equals to 22. This is another class variable for our understanding. Right, so initially when we print class name double underscore dict, will have cd. So save this, come to the command prompt and run static vars 3.py. Okay, so put proper comments here, save and run. Okay, right, so we don't have proper comments, check it out. Okay, close the comments here, run. Still we are getting error. Okay, so triple single quotes, save, run. Still we are getting error. So what is the error here? Okay, this one we are having the error with comment previous case. So put proper comments, come back to the program, save and run. So if you see here, initially we have two static variables in our class, C11, D22. Okay, using dictionary object we have printed it. Now let us delete it. Okay, right, so so print static variable cd using class name. Okay, right, execute till here. Right, so save this and run it. So C11, D22. Next, similarly now we'll call this method. Okay, m1 method, static variables delete m1 method. So x is deleted, x dot c is deleted, but d will be there. After that print, okay, print class name dot dictionary. So let's check it out, save this and run. So now previously we had C value, D value. We have deleted C value in the class method using x.c. Now we have only D value, static variable. Now try to access C value, you will get the error. Try to access D value, it will be printed. Okay. So we got the error, no attribute C. Okay. So try to access D. Wait. We got 22. So let us delete D outside the class. Okay. So delete static variables 3.d. And after that print class name dot dictionary. So save this and run. Right. So it's static vars delete dot d. Save and run. It's not there. Class name is not there. Any error? Acha. Right. So where we are getting error here? Static vars delete. So class name is there, na? Yes. Okay. So save this. Acha. Capital D. It's case sensitive. Okay. Class name. Now run. No error. So previously we had D value. We have deleted that. After that, we don't have D value. So this is how we are supposed to delete static variables of a Python class inside the class and outside the class. So coming to the last topic, local variables. Okay. So local variables are declared inside particular method of a class. So they are temporary variables. Such variables are created when method is executed and destroyed when method execution is completed. So local variables have local access and direct access inside that particular method, but not outside the method. So coming to the program, local variables.py. So take a new page. So first we'll write the comments, program to demo local variables. Take a class, local variables. Description of the class, local variables, class definition. So I'm taking two methods, m1 method. Inside that x is equals to 10. So this is a local variable, print x. Take m2 method with self variable, y is equals to 20. This is a local variable, print y here. Now when we try to access x in m2 method, you will get an error because m1 is a local variable, x is a local variable to m1. So x is local variable to m1 function. Similarly, y. So y is local variable to m2 method. Right. So let's create an object of the class local variables obj, call m1 method and m2 method. So save this. Come to the command prompt. So run local variables.py. So in m1 method x value is 10. In m2 method y value is 20. Now try to access x value in m2 method. You will get the error because x is local to m1 method. So x is not defined in m2 method. Name error. m2 method it is not defined. Okay. So this is how we are supposed to work with local variables in a particular method of a class, Python class. So guys, that is what is all about today's session in advanced Python programming. Types of variables in Python class, static variables in Python class, and local variables in Python class. Right guys? So thank you for watching and listening to this session. Have a nice day.